Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really would like first to thank the organizers, Eastern Africa Standby Force, the Ministry of Defense of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and all of you who are here. And also, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the kind introductions. I always enjoy coming to military-related institutions, especially training centers. The fact that they start on time and so on, I will try to make sure that I also finish within the time frame that I'm given. I was impressed and on several meetings that is not the case. But also I know many of the speakers, the previous speakers, have already covered several aspects of I'm used to Mac, another laptop type, and I have a technological challenge here to operate. I consider myself within the category of technologically challenged persons. As you know, technology is inversely related with age. I ask my colleagues who are younger to help me, unlike wisdom, which goes with age, increasingly. So let me start with the last speaker's point, the general, the doctor from Eastern African Brigade. Very interesting comments, the readiness from the military side. And we all know, even if many people, our continent in terms of megatrend is mixed, we are in transition. We are in transition that our continent is in crisis. So much so that actually our region is more. Only in our region we have more than 50,000 peacekeeping troops, excluding international troops in Djibouti and somewhere else. In Africa, as we speak, we have more than 100,000 international troops. So you can consider it a theater for peacekeeping in general. And this is an improvement. It's not necessarily bad thing. Previously, we had crises, more dangerous, more killing, more deadly than this. Now we are intervening. It's a progress by itself. If you see it from the floor, where we were, not from where we should be in the ceiling, then this is improvement by any parameter. But we need, that means this is a transition, and actually we have also the other face of the region. The second one, which shows that we are moving also on integrative processes, integrative opportunities in the region. We have many jointly run activities now than before. And these activities will come at accelerated rate. They will not come the same speed we have seen them before. So it's not a region of only despair. It's a region of hope in many ways. And Eastern African Brigade gives another impetus for this hope that we are witnessing. And I have mentioned this one, I will run it simply because this has been also highlighted by the previous speakers. And the challenges that this region is facing. Most of the troops are coming from Africa. Even if at leadership level there are a lot of questions, for academics like me, we have different views than the AUPs and Security Department and so on and so on. But generally speaking, this region, the situation we are seeing, the engagement that these continental RECs have on the issues indicates the improvements. I will not go to these details because this has been presented. I just want to show the slide. And the determinants shortly, and this has been highlighted, the socio-economic stressors, whether our development grows in the region, in Africa, will be inclusive or exclusive, whether the demographic trend stressors grows is going to be an asset or a liability, whether migration is going to tilt towards mobility, proper one, which is necessary for integration, or it will be more displacement on forced level, compelling people for various reasons. Whether we are going to be able to mitigate, Africa cannot contribute as such big time, but at least to adapt to climate change stressors. And ultimately, the government's capability, whether we are reforming fast or not, to be able to change, to counter these stressors, whether the international intervention will be helpful or not is an important aspect in general. And I think this has been pointed out. And we know the actors in this region. The actors, the central governments, be it through military coup d'etat or not, what have you, or rebel groups, or indigenized violent extremist groups, terrorist groups, insurgents that are also with international companies looking for various resources in Africa, pirates operating from land to on the sea, where you cannot solve the solution from the sea, ultimately the solution will be on land, or drones, international interventions similar to those which we have witnessed in Libya, that has led to the situation we are in, or inspirations coming from outside, very far places, using Twitter's social media, technologically advanced mechanisms to control the narrative, the messaging, to target the individual in the building, the individual in the institutions, not the installations physically. Or, like I said, international troops. Mr. Ocampo is around. Even if he is not anywhere now as a prosecutor, but his cases are lingering in Africa, affecting the peace and security situation. We know all in Darfur and other places. So the major changes, the nature of state, we have heard earlier, poor performance, low popularity, the nature of political forces. States do not operate. Governments are originating from social forces, from political forces. They don't come from the vacuum, from Mars. They come from the society. They form the states, very undemocratic in nature, based on markers that are completely inflammable, easily flammable, easily instigated, provoked, ethnicity, religion, money, rackets, using for money, political force. The nature of international intervention, I have mentioned NATO's intervention in Libya, which the AU was from the beginning, we are saying we are going to unknown territory. I was one of the critics, strong critics on March 21, briefing the Peace and Security Council and the PRC of AU, that in Libya it's not even like Somalia. You don't have clans to talk to. They have been destroyed by 40 years of Colonel Gaddafi's rule. There are no any pockets of law and order where you can put your troops and move. There is no address you can go and talk. They have been destroyed by 40 years. And you are going to unknown territory. For NATO, this has been said repeatedly by the EU, with our map. And this was unheeded in general. And this is an example of incapacitating African solution to African problems. Even if the problems are going to be not necessarily African, but in the solution, African role will be important. Now, generally speaking, earlier we have heard the security paradigm in general affecting our region. You have soft insecurity that affect the hard insecurity, the hard insecurity affecting the soft insecurity. The blame is, of course, ourselves. If we are weak, we will be exploited. If we are strong, we will be able to deal, to discuss, to mitigate external influences. But all you have this that has been already pointed out, including vulnerabilities of disaster. I think the East African Brigade, Eastern African Brigade, Eastern African Force, standby force, also has a mandate for non-military purpose, like we have seen the component on disasters and so on, increasingly. Because the capability is special capability. It's about human security, it's not pure hard insecurity only. That lead to death. Ultimately, in my opinion, it's about governments. If governments are ready, we will mitigate the effects on our population. If the governance is not ready, then we will continue the way we have been before. What we see, what I have explained earlier, are the matter of hope in governments are now, for the first time, Africans are now, for the first time, introspective. They are examining themselves before blaming outsiders. Saying we are responsible, we put the blame first ourselves before we blame outsiders. That, in my opinion, is a paradigm shift in thinking. And that's the reason why we are hopeful in some countries, including my own country, Ethiopia, but other countries that are taking introspective perspective and standing. You can work with this kind of. And I think the fundamentals, ultimately, and this is a parameter, a framework that I present for almost many things, not only for standby forces. The framework that I apply is the capability framework. The first one, if we are capable, we don't need Eastern Africa standby force. The first is to prevent conflicts in the beginning. They are backup generators. It's only when a society is failing that the AU will be needed, IGAD will be needed. If a society is capable of providing for itself, to prevent, first to predict what will happen, scientific scenario building, actionable intelligence, command, control, and communication, and the early warning, early response gap that has been mentioned earlier, bridging that gap, which I think is an improvement. We have moved to early warning in many ways. Indicators are good, scientific bases are well formulated, you cannot find even holes, much holes, lacunas. Now, how do we translate this one from early warning to early response is a big question. And it's not necessarily a standby force issue, like I said. So you have also the second line of defense. I hope this will work, but I will continue. I think the computer has a problem. Yes. In this case, it's not inversely related, it's technologically advanced now. Now, the second line of defense, preventive capability, which we have to have. If we predict, then we have to build also the capacity to prevent from crisis happening that will invite others to come in Africa, in our continent, in our region. The third line, and I don't want to go to the detail, the third line of defense is, of course, responsive capability. We need standby forces. Very important, critical, change makers. Are we ready for Burundi? Is the political leadership ready? The fourth, of course, in some cases, like terrorism, violent extremism, and so on, is not only enough to have the response, the predictive, the preventive, the responsive capability. We have to adapt. We have to change our security systems in institutions. We have to change parameters, engagements. We have done that in many ways. And it's dependent on socio-economic power. For poverty, we undermine it. So even to be secure, we have to eradicate poverty. Even all these lines of defense, you will see socio-economic element is very, very critical. It cannot be differentiated from the security and peace and security. Now, this is my favorite slide. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to present it. My favorite slide, a government that is not able to deliver basic, legitimately expected services to its population is doomed to fail. The delivery part has to take the biggest budget, and you cannot know governments by what they say on TV or spokespersons say. You go to their budget. That's where their mouth should be. You go to the budget, how much do they put for education, for health, for telecommunication, for electricity, for water, for sanitation, and so on. I see this big one, I see better future. Then this has to be also shared, inclusive, not exclusive. The delivery has to be as inclusive as possible to everyone. If you exclude, if you don't share your lunch so that you can eat your dinner peacefully, otherwise they will come to take your dinner and your lunch, if necessary your breakfast. And it's important these two will provide legitimacy for the state, for the government. Both popular legitimacy, performance legitimacy. Popular legitimacy through elections, popular legitimacy through performance, legitimacy through delivery of services, basic services. And you have then, you need these two pillars, the security, law and order in the society, and the resource. A government that a government that gets funding and builds its basic work, inherently national works from outside sources, is failed to do, is doomed to fail. We need resource mobilization, at least to critically, inherently national works. Law and order, peace and security, public services, they should be no-go zone for external sources. No-go zone area. The others, you can free them. You can partner them. Until I see that, I will have a problem with African governments. I will pass these mega trends. I see my moderator, my chair, getting agitated now, and I will go to.
It is a jihadist. Jihadist. Jihadist computer.
Now I will go to some of the mega trends before I go to the counter-terrorism and counter-jihadism. But I think you will see some of the slides recently on Africa Futures. The burden of conflict in Africa compared to other regions like Middle East. In some cases it's bigger, but generally speaking, a declining trend. But on terrorism, you will see a slight increase. Compared to others, it has increased in other parts, especially Middle East. But in Africa, it has been increasing also on this. And in terms of economic performance, you will see implications for peace and security in general, and Africa being pointed out as hopeful one here. And this is, the time has changed, it's 2050, actually. And I will pass this one, increasing, and this is for the regions in Africa. You will see Eastern Horn of Africa, this one. It is hopeful again, an increasing trend, even if it's less than the other region that we see here. Economic growth in general. And I will go to one of the slides that I want to share. With the OAU turned into AU, where the Eastern African Standby Force comes. End of Cold War, the responsibility to protect, the interventionist mandate that IGAD has got with the AU Constitutive Act, the African solution to African problems that has been highlighted earlier, and most of the AU and REX engagements that we see on mediation and peace processes, we have several peace processes, they are not exactly where we want to achieve them, but actually they are improvements from where we were. These are perspectives. Even in the IGAD, you will see CPA, DPA, the new compromise agreement for South Sudan, Somalia, their role is big. And like I said, the troops are coming from. And there is a balance between state building or rebuilding, participation of communities, including some of the combatants. How do you make them participate in peace process, inclusively? The war on terror and its implication for this and national interests in this country. And this, I think, earlier, the issue of APSA having the warning, early warning, the diplomacy, the deployment, and also the post-conflict reconstruction and development that we talk a lot. But all these trends will show you that there is no military solution to any of the conflicts that we have. But there will not be a solution without the military's participation. And for that reason, I would like to put this, maybe I will pass this one because of time, and I'll put this one. Sorry for this, but I want to go to the peace support operation part, which I want to share with you. Yeah. Are we fit for purpose? Do we need doctrinal shifts inside? We saw the multidimensionality of peace support operations in general, and that's a good anchor. But the mega trends will show you that most of the conflicts need local actors to be involved, including on diseases like Ebola and so on. There are limitations on this capability that I have mentioned earlier. Geographic proximity matters, and so that the reason why you have standby forces coming from the region will be very important for that peculiarization and local expertise. And the intervention legitimacy will be also boosted if you have this kind of regional mechanisms. But more importantly, far away forces will not be sustainably there for you for long. We have seen it in many African, and we have heard it earlier on Amisom Kate, that the interest from other external actors was very limited. The region has to do it, because it's its own region. And this is the last slide that I want to share. The first is, increasingly peace support operations will be dependent on the supremacy of politics. The second is on the primacy of performance legitimacy, which is very, very important, that ultimately, even when you go to peace support operation like AMISOM, peace enforcement or stabilization offensive forces that you use, increasingly, whether you have big force or not is not what will ultimately decide. It will be whether you are delivering more effectively and attractively to the population than the other forces that you are trying to counter. For example, Al-Shabaab. So it's almost mirroring Al-Shabaab in terms of delivery, except the violence, the illegality of that group. And the subsidiarity of the military is assured. I think the presentation was clear, that it's a backup generator. And the international community's complementarity role for them. And I'll stop here, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I took, I think, about 2 or 3 minutes more than the allotted time, but apologies for that.